Let's discuss. Hey everyone, it's Rachel back again with another 2021 end of the year video. In this video, I will be going over my 1 through 5 choices for EP of the year 2021. It has been an incredible year for EPs, the most stacked EP year I have ever seen. So this was very difficult to rank. I will be, going over my 1 through 5. I will post full lists a bit later on, but for here, we're going to go into a little bit of detail about 1 through 5. I've already posted my honorable mentions, which would be 11, 12, and 13, as well as my 6 through 10 on the channel. So here we will finish up. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to get into number 5. My number 5 EP pick for 2021 would be Static Dress with their Prologue comic book soundtrack. This is a band that is very awesome. I found Static Dress very early on this year. Their song Safe Word is probably still my favorite Static Dress song, but Vague would be a close second, if not tied for that favorite spot. Vague is off of this EP, Safe Word is not. And with this EP, I think for me, so the majority of it, well, maybe not the majority, but a lot of it gets skipped on my regular listening because every other track is an interlude on the full. That's why there are so many tracks for it being an EP, but the tracks like themselves, the actual full songs, those are what make this absolutely a top 5, regardless of, the interludes being kind of a little bit difficult. So, but it also is the comic book soundtrack. They had a comic book that went along with this. This was going around from their live shows before it got released. So it's a really cool concept, and this is a prologue of the band. So it's to say there is a full-length album coming up next year is when it's supposed to be, I believe, but there's no official release date or anything, so we won't really be sure. I just saw them teasing something on Twitter yesterday, so that is very exciting. When they do put out a full-length album, it will be a very threatening to the rest of my album of the year list that year, because Static Dress has this sound that's like, they've got the fast and fun riffs that match up. So their vocalist Ollie is a huge part of what is attractive about this band to me. His vocals are just very, he's got this singing voice that works. Like when I think of the song Safe Word in the chorus there, I love those clean vocals, but this band also goes heavier as well, in a different style than the majority of what I listen to that I would consider to be heavy. And then the riffs and just instrumentally all together, drumming, everything on there, it can just adapt to that switch like that, and it's just such a good sound. I'm not sure what even some of the genre would be, because I don't listen to too many bands that sound like Static Dress does, but I just love that sound, and it's got really bright vocals in some parts, and then, like I said, it can just switch over to being more aggressive, and Ollie's just a really versatile vocalist. And those two sounds, it's not like two really, I've talked a lot on my list about like bands that I feel have two separate sounds that they kind of blend together, and I don't feel, it feels like very a cohesive sound with Static Dress that just has both of those, if that makes any sense. But yeah, there's just something in the delivery, the energy. They've got some, the pauses and then I kind of like thinking back and listening to it, some of the build-up that they have that go on in the drums after the pauses and such. I'm just looking for more from Static Dress, really. There's no complaints in how these songs actually sound, just wanting it to be a little bit more of like a cohesive release, or a fluent release that I can listen through and get more from them, really, because it feels like the entire time I've been a fan of Static Dress, I'm getting like these little pieces that I just adore. And so the full length will be something for me that I'm really excited about. I do want to like check out the comic book that goes along with this and stuff. I feel like it may be different for me at that point, but I love what they're doing with that. I still think it's super cool. So for me, that is my number 5 pick, Static Dress. They are a band to definitely keep your eye on, whatever they're doing. I love the whole concept of it's very well thought out and really detailed what they're doing. So really awesome. Keep your eye out on them. That is my number 5. I'm going to get into number 4. My number 4 pick for EP of the year 2021 is 156 Silence with Don't Hold Your Breath. I am obsessed with this EP. It is a shorter release, so there is an opening track, which, the repetition struggle. The repetition of the EP title in that track, I like it as an opener. I don't do too much revisiting unless I'm listening to the EP in full, which I've been doing a lot recently, so it's not something I skip when listening to the rest of the EP. But The Wrong Sense, Violent Delight, those two right there, those are top tier for me, probably both in my top 15 songs in general for this year, but The Wrong Sense topping that list for sure. One of my favorite songs to come out of this year. With 156 Silence, they have the vocals that kind of give me that, like, almost like some hardcore type of feel at times, but then like the metalcore instrumentals with that style, it's just absolute yes for me. It's a lot of the vocal patterns here too, which I mentioned when I talk about Sentinels in my album of the year list. I would say they've got a similar thing going there that I'm drawn to. They both ended up topping my list as well. It's something in that sound and in the vocal patterns with these the more hardcore-ish sounding vocals, though it's very metalcore as well. It's kind of a hard thing to pinpoint why it comes across that way, but then the huge breakdowns, like the ending breakdown on this song, the lyricism, it's very deep lyricism, and I think that I also connected kind of with this song at a time when I was struggling, so just reading the lyrics and like learning them and like really seeing how those vocal patterns kind of reflect the amount of emotion that like the lyricism gives you. I love that. So it was something that really stood out to me and spoke to me as I was getting into this EP. The drumming is absolutely just unforgiving. It's really matches up with that aggression, because though it's sad, the topic is also like aggression as well, and kind of frustration, I would say, and it comes across so well instrumentally, vocally, all of it, and then the lyrics just match up with it perfectly as well. So though it's short, the top of my list, the EP of the year is short as well, so that really didn't matter to me. It was the content in those two songs, in the closing song, Coup de Grace as well. I love it. It's excellent. It's nothing against that song, because I love it as well. It's the reason this EP is at the top of my list, but Violent Delight and The Wrong Sense are just on a totally top tier level for me. So having that closer too as Coup de Grace, it touches almost on a little bit of a different feel than the songs I'm talking about give you too, and I love that because it adds a bit of a different dynamic. Not so, even with just those three songs, it's not as samey, but I love it. So that vocal style, kind of some of the spoken, with 156 Silence on their full-length record from last year too, they just have these parts where they talk a little bit, like spoken word parts, and it's just excellent. So for me, hard-hitting, aggressive, big instrumentals, big vocals, I love this. Top tier, cannot wait to see what 156 Silence does next. That is my number 3. My number 2 pick for EP of the year 2021 is MOURN with their EP The Next Life. This is a new band. They just came out in 2021. Their debut song was Hell to Pay, and it's probably my favorite on this EP, but by like this much. The rest of the EP, the other 3 songs, equally as incredible. There's just something really special about Hell to Pay. There's this part where it kind of opens up and instrumentally it just sounds huge, and it's melodic, and then it goes into more of like a 2-step breakdown after that, and just so the dynamic between those two sounds, the vocals on here, you don't get a ton of variety in the vocals. Again, it's just 4 songs as well, so you don't need it. It's just this style is excellent. Like, this is probably my favorite band to come out of 2021, and there have been some really awesome new bands, but MOURN for me, just top of the list. I'm constantly revisiting this EP. When I'm talking about like that 2-step type of breakdown beat, you get a lot of that, yet when I'm talking about in Hell to Pay, like where the song comes together and you know, it almost sounds like there's like violin or something in there as well. There is just such a difference in those two sounds, yet they it's incorporated very well into blending them, if that makes sense. And then you go into like Pray for Violence, and that same kind of breakdown sort of beat is what sticks out to me about that song so much, but also the lyrics on this one as well. So as you're probably figuring out, lyrics are very big to me. It's not everything, but when I can kind of listen to the lyrics on a release and be like, wow, I love that, and there's so much emotion here too. Like, as you get to the part where It's at what I'm talking about, where you've got like the big instrumental parts and it starts repeating like, is this the hell that I have to pay? The vocal performance and then the way that that's just presented there, and there's so much emotion, it just sounds big vocally as well. So, and then you've got like the title track. I just love that. When you think the line, Lord give me death, and then you know you have that riff that just that sound, it's a perfect sound for those unclean vocals. The guitar on this, there's nothing too like in your face or flashy like some of the stuff that you may see on these lists, but just excellent guitar playing. A lot of the heaviness that this brings forward, I feel like is different than other heavy that we see on here, which I've said about 156 as well. No, I wouldn't say 156, I compared that to Sentinels. There was something else that I said, like, oh, it was Static Dress, that I felt like their heavy was different. This would be another example of something completely different, but that feels the same. Like, for me, I have a lot of stuff that I feel like is shreddy in the guitar. It's got these big, elaborate breakdowns and stuff, where this, like, really taps into kind of, like, that melodic, hardcore type of sound, and I love that. And I haven't got to do anything for Counterparts on the channel, but I feel like that's something that Counterparts brings forward that I really liked. And whatever vein Counterparts hits, I feel like MOURN hits as well, a little bit better, though I love Counterparts, don't get me wrong, very excited for what they'll do next. This is just like 100% my style I didn't even really knew I wanted. And then they also have the track Gloom. Like, I feel wrong not bringing up any of the tracks on this, because they all they flow very well. What I'm talking about with like having that melodicness while being super heavy, they all have that, yet they kind of have their own flavors to them and bring forward something a bit different, each of them. Like with Hell to Pay having that big, you know, melodic, huge instrumental section, and then I think Pray for Violence, and I think that sort of slappy type of breakdown. Just something different for everyone, I think, that likes this specific type of heavy. Not everyone in general, like pop fans and stuff like that, but if you're into heavy music and the stuff I'm talking about, you please check out MOURN if you have not hear it right now. Top tier, almost, you know, topping the list for me this year. So that is my number 3 pick, MOURN, with their EP and their debut release in general. Yeah, The Next Life. I will go into my number 2 pick for my EP of the year list for 2021, Left to Suffer, with their EP On Death. This is incredible in terms of deathcore releases. This is one of my favorites probably ever. For me, it really opened up a lot of doors to sounds I didn't even really realize that I love to hear in deathcore, that sort of thing. Taylor's vocal performance is just like one of my favorites when it comes to deathcore vocalists. He's probably 1 or 2 in terms of favorite vocalists, and then the instrumentals just do 100% justice to his amazing vocal performance. You've got just this super heavy EP that also is touching on these really heavy topics. Once again, I'm going to bring up lyricism, because with this, it feels very accessible lyrically. I talked a little bit about being accessible lyrically, because sometimes lyrics are just like, especially with some of like the super heavy stuff I've listened to, with the lyrics I'm just like, can't relate, but I love this track. Sounds good. With Left to Suffer, they have accessible lyrics, stuff that people can relate to. And then also just in the drops, like Taylor's the Who obviously is a big one. The O's on here. You also have like stuff that brings it up a notch for me would be like some of the breakdowns when you think this track with that fuck your God and his only son, and then the really weird lead that follows it. You've got Depression, which is one of my favorite songs from this year at all. It was the first song I ever heard from Left to Suffer. Somebody requested it on stream, and as soon as we listened to it, I fell in love with it immediately. So it's probably my favorite song on the EP, but each one brings something to the table that just makes me go, well, actually, like Event having that AOL goodbye in the breakdown. They played that live too, so I got to see Left to Suffer live this year. They killed it. These songs were just as much fun to see live as I had been hoping. They also played off of their, you know, their older stuff. They played Lost at Last, which I love that track, and it really kind of, if I had heard it prior to this coming out, like, and if I had become a fan of Left to Suffer prior to this EP coming out, it would definitely be a track that was good to get you stoked for this EP because it's just got some of those call outs that you think of when you think of Left to Suffer. But this does, like, listening to those releases off of that remastered album and everything, On Death seems to be like where you would want this band to be going. The production is insane. Like, hearing those details I'm talking about, that wacky lead, and the way Taylor's vocals just like pierce through the mix. They need to having a voice like that. He's got huge vocals, but it doesn't, like, it has to be done in a way where it doesn't like overpower these like really fantastic instrumentals, these riffs. The drums, just relentless, unforgiving drumming. Huge, just a huge EP. And I thought, looking at the track list too, that some of the features, like having Lockie on there or Tom Barber, those tracks would stick out to me the most, because I was like, how could they not? And then the fact that those weren't even the tracks, though I love them, don't get me wrong, that stuck out to me the most, I feel like it says a ton about Left to Suffer and where they've come up to on my listening and such. I just cannot get enough of this band. They have something so special. So Left to Suffer, On Death, that is my number 2 for EP of the year. My number 1 favorite EP of 2021, Invent Animate, The Sun Sleeps As If It Never Was. Kind of inevitable, but I do feel like I fairly assess this release, and like, it's not just my number 1 because Invent Animate is my favorite band and I love everything they do, though that is true. I feel like I really did take a step back, and I looked at this, and I even pulled the numbers for like how much I have listened to this EP compared to other things amongst the year. I think the total EP spins as of December 27th, it was like 889 or something like that. So that's just between like The Sun Sleeps and As If It Never Was, the 2 full tracks on here. It's like 700 something listens to those tracks. And the earliest that I would be listening to either of those are September. So I have done a ton of listening to this. I cannot get enough of this EP. I feel like this is my favorite band at their best. So I do feel like it's fared as a number 1. I don't need it to be longer than 10 minutes, 2 full songs and an interlude, because these 2 songs really, like I said, it feels like Invent Animate at their best. When Graveyou came out, people were saying like, oh, Marcus is a good fit, but like, I want his lows to be like more this, or his lows that. This EP feels like a direct response to that. Like, those people will be quiet now, because some of those lows and but he also has, so if you listen to Fireside on Graveyou, he also has the ability to do like that catchy sort of, like, I don't know, because it's not exactly clean, but it sort of is. He does some of that, and then the chorus on As If It Never Was, and even the intro vocals on that track. It's just, he sounds incredible. So this is an amazing performance from Marcus Vick. They're going to be, right now as I'm recording this, they are in a cabin writing the next LP for Invent Animate, and I'm just so stoked, because you can, in just a short period of time, they put out Graveyou in 2020, and then 2021 they hit us with this EP, and Marcus's vocals already just sound like incredibly. Don't get me wrong, for Graveyou, for me, there was nothing I would have changed. I didn't think that his lows like didn't hit well enough, but then listening to the improvements on here, I can very clearly hear them. But for me, Graveyou is like, top tier. That was my absolute favorite album of last year. So for me, though I didn't hear those things, I can still hear the improvements on this. And then there are things like, that chorus riff in The Sun Sleeps, hearing, and especially the excitement around when The Sun Sleeps came out, because I was just so stoked that Invent was putting something out, and then to have it deliver like that, excellent. The pre-chorus, the chorus on The Sun Sleeps, that entire section, I love it. I love that they did the outro breakdown. I know they had talked about how like they weren't going to, and they weren't sure, and this, and I'm so glad they included it, because I'm definitely one of those people that really dig that outro type of breakdown. And so it's got like that bouncy feel in that chorus riff. You've got Caleb going along with the bass, just supporting like that sound there. The vocal performance from Marcus is really awesome on this song, though, like with As If It Never Was, it goes even further than that. The fact that the interlude is a comma, and they just took the comma out of their name and stuff, like, I love that. I love this band. I love that they do stuff like that. And also just the interlude of comma with the visuals of this music video, which is my favorite music video of this year as well. This is an awesome piece of music put out like this. But anyway, Comma is really awesome. I don't listen to it obviously as much as I do The Sun Sleeps and As If It Never Was, but I do listen to it a decent amount. I feel like it connects those two songs very well, especially when you look at the visuals and you know, you hear as it starts building into As If It Never Was. It's just really cool. So I like that, and then you have As If It Never Was. That is my favorite song of this year, hands down. I've already mentioned about Marcus's vocal performance and how on point I really think that was, but in addition to that, just that chorus is massive, both instrumentally, vocally from Marcus. It's got so much emotion built up in it, and as it goes to like make you change, as you hear the instrumentals, they're just like expressing the same amount of emotion, and I love that. And I feel like they wait until after you get that first chorus on As If It Never Was, and then that riff that kicks in post-chorus after that, it's so Invent Animate. So people, I know I saw some comments that were like, saying it didn't sound like Invent Animate, but it 100% does. Like that right there is very Invent. They got the ambience in there, which they are ambient metalcore for sure. It's been one of my favorite qualities about them. So though of course it's not like another Greyview or another Still World or another Everchanger, but it does feel like evolution in their discography. It makes perfect sense, and that clean Invent Animate guitar tone in the riffs, especially that you hear in As If It Never Was, that is a very Invent sound, but they just sound evolved. They sound at the top of their game. So I could continue on about this for far too long. I doubt anyone wants that. Invent is amazing. They've done so much really awesome merch this year with the bundles, with this the Sun Sleeps merch, my new favorite shirt. So I will include all of their links, all of their social media and such in the description. Check them out. They are amazing. As I've mentioned a billion times, they're my favorite band, so a little bit biased in terms of saying how amazing they are, but when it comes to my assessment of the EP and stuff, I do feel like it's a fair assessment based off of my tastes and what I've been jamming. So thank you very much for checking out my EP of the year list. This is without a doubt my #1. Then Animate, The Sun Sleeps, As If It Never Was. That concludes my EP of the year list for 2021. As I mentioned, I will make like a full list, like top 25 or something like that in the next few days to post on socials, just so the bands that I didn't really get a chance to talk about so much or promote as much as the others, I'm still getting a chance to mention to some degree. I just, maybe next year I'll start on these things a bit earlier in the year or something, because it's just been a lot of work to get everything set for the end of the year with Discord and all of that. But it's been very awesome to be able to discuss all of these picks with you and hear everyone else's. Make sure if you'd like to, let me know in the comments what your 1 through 5 were, what your EP of the year list looked like. I love this stuff, and obviously that's why I'm making these videos, because I have a lot of fun ranking, and I think it's really awesome to share that stuff. So again, yeah, thank you for checking out my picks. Let me know what you thought in the comments, or if you found any new bands or anything like that, and let me know yours. Thank you very much for watching. I'll include the link tree in the description that has the invite for the Discord server and my Instagram and stuff, but really this is mainly just about the bands that have made all this stuff possible all year. So big shout out to the bands. They are amazing. They are the reason that I am able to make any videos at all, or that I do any of this. So thank you very much, and I hope everybody has an amazing new year, and I will see you as we start with EPs in 2022.